Dozens of dismembered, unburied human body parts. They're found strewn around a cemetery, some fingers, some leg bones, foot bones, and investigators would discover it's the horrific handiwork of a maniac with an ice pick at the ready, and reckoned to his right eye just to be sure that he was dead a hacksaw in the garage, 2 dismembered head, and something unthinkable cooking in the kitchen. His head was in a pot on the stove, and his armored leg was in the oven. Nobody in the quiet Central Florida community of Deltona could have ever imagined they'd have a murderous butcher living in their midst. It's the stuff of nightmares, and the atrocities that this killer committed behind closed doors, and even horrified, hardened veteran moments. It's one of the most brutal, gruesome cases that I've seen. The grim details begin to come to light after a 36-year-old limousine driver named James Shaffer goes missing. I think most people would describe James as an affable, fun-loving guy, hard worker, and dedicated to his family, and a good provider for Candy Medina, his girlfriend of 17 years, and their 3 children. They had a loving relationship as far as we could tell. It was a normal husband-wife relationship, except for the fact that they had never been married. James was also well-liked by others who knew him, including his boss, Peter Harrington. He never saw a bad side to him, and he was a really nice person. Harrington was the last one to see James before he disappeared after just finishing a late-night driving shift. He pretty much came and got paid, and Annie left. Harrington remembers James getting into a car and an unidentified driver. That was the last I ever seen him. Nobody else sees or hears from him either. James is listed as a missing person. He absolutely disappeared into thin air. We had no trace of him anywhere. John Brady, a retired detective who worked the case, says cops immediately suspected foul play. We looked into all the leads we looked into, the limousine company and his associates. There's potential suspects, and his disappearance, detectives would also question girlfriend Candy. Candy tells them James would never have willingly abandoned her or their kids. She was certain that Mr. Shaffer just wouldn't go disappear, so she was pretty adamant that his disappearance was something more suspicious than just him going off on his own. But Candy throws investigators a curveball when she says she actually heard from James the day after he supposedly disappeared. His girlfriend told investigators that she had received a text from him, and that he had said he had to hide from somebody, but that he was okay. Angelus told one of the friends and neighbors interviewed by police, says the frightened James had also come to her home, asking for money after being reported missing. So when he comes to your house, you tell him, "We've been there." He knows what he said. He said before they were born now, detectives learned money might be at the heart of his mysterious disappearance. James is not very good with money. Okay, so James gets himself into debt, and they suspect he may have gotten into hot water with an angry creditor. We found some text messages in his phone that suggested maybe people associated with his gambling were after him. They apparently weren't the only ones. We found more messages that he owed people money for various reasons. Neighbor Angela tells detectives she's been trying to help James manage his finances, but detectives are surprised to learn Angela is actually listed as a paid and guarantor on a Social Security account James held. It was unusual to have the neighbor be the payee on the Social Security account. Angela says she was doing it out of friendship and didn't profit, but investigators delve a little deeper into the dynamics between James and the single mother of 2 who lived directly across the street from him. It was a strange relationship and not strictly business. They also had a relationship such that he would be comfortable going over late in the evening, sometimes in the middle of the night, to have drinks with her. Detectives asked Angela if they'd been having an affair. "Are you and Jimmy romantically involved? Does he ever try to beat you?" Angela admits that they'd also had other close encounters, but there was something else that piques the interest of detectives. The surprising indifference of girlfriend Candy to James's relationship with the 42-year-old Angela. She wasn't alarmed that it was a little disconcerting. It wasn't an unusual arrangement. Limousine driver James Shaffer had mysteriously gone missing after finishing a late-night shift. Detectives believe his neighbor in Deltona, Florida, Angela Stolt, may have had something to do with it. I wouldn't say she became a suspect, but she certainly became a person that we were interested in speaking to more about Mr. Shaffer's disappearance. Angela had attracted the attention of investigators when they learned she had control of James's finances, and their suspicions have been piqued when the 42-year-old single mom admitted their relationship was more than just business and more than just friends. But just as detectives were wondering if Angela might have murdered James for love or money, or both, she points them towards two other possible suspects. One of them, his boss Peter Harrington, allegedly over an unpaid login. Angela also casts suspicion upon James's longtime live-in girlfriend Candy Medina, the mother of his 3 children. Angela tells detectives that they weren't the happy couple they appeared to be, and that Candy was not as sweet as her name might imply. But as detectives tried to find out what was happening to James, everything keeps pointing them back to the direction of Angela. Stopping by Angela's house, she became more and more withdrawn, and she didn't answer any questions. That really raised my suspicions, an investigator said, as she lived in a house of horror. We saw graffiti on the walls. We thought maybe it was some kind of cult-like thing. There were strange religious icons littered about the home. There were sex toys in her room, and pentagrams on the windows. It's not something you would have seen in better homes and gardens, that's for certain. And then, about a month after James's disappearance, an obviously disturbed Angela cracks her sister calling 911. A&S Terrical. Angela's threatening to kill herself, screaming that she'd already killed somebody. A sister mentioned something about Angela saying that she had done something to Jimmy, and Angela tells detectives what she did to him in a confession, recorded on audio in a patrol car as she leads Detective John Brady and a JPG Larry to the scene of the crime. But we're driving right now to the scene where she says that the murder actually took place. Angela had already told them that she was the mystery driver who picked James up after work. The night he disappeared, she told him that her father was going to give her some money that she could loan. She says she then drove James to a cemetery where she told them they had to wait until her father woke up. That's a spot you park. You told me park, and when they got out there, Miss Stoll told Mr. Shaffer that it was a joke to pay James back. She says for lies he told her about, particularly about financial matters. And he started yelling about me. You can say it. What happened? He came at me, and he stabbed him with an ice pick. She says she grabbed from the toolbox in the back seat of the car, where it just happens that the right eye, he points out right eye. And when that doesn't deter James, Angela says she keeps stabbing, and she doesn't know if he's dead, so she pulls the ice pick out and she jams it in his other eye, and swirls it around before finishing him off with some tree climbing equipment, until she strangled James to death. How do you know he was dead? How could you tell? Stop. Did you do anything else after that? I mean, I don't mean about, and would you wrap his head with? And then she drives the body back to her home. He still had the ice pick in his eye, and with saran wrap around Faith, Angela says she dismembers James's body in the garage with a hacksaw before taking the body parts to the kitchen, where she boils and bakes them. She felt, I guess, that cooking them would somehow shrink them down. Angela packs the remains along with James's bloody clothes in garbage bags and then dumps them in several remote locations. Her words were, if it was at different areas, then it would hamper the investigation somehow, if anything was ever found. And unbelievably, Angela's 2 unwitting teenage children helped her believe the remains of those are a deer the mother hit with her and not a human body. Investigators find most of James's body parts at the cemetery where Angela killed him. Dozens of his bones and body parts strewn around the property after being torn out of the garbage bags by animals. So fingers, some leg bones, foot bones. I do recall there being a pot, I think, with a foot bone, with a foot in there and ankle bone in the pot that was thrown in the woods. There at the cemetery and her murder trial, Angela would plead not guilty, and she acted in self-defense, but the prosecution insists it was clearly premeditated, presenting a mountain of damning evidence against Angela, including proof that she drugged James before killing him. Miss Dahl didn't show any signs of any kind of self-defense wounds. We also were able to show in her financial records that she had purchased latex gloves, that she had purchased saran wrap, that she had purchased other items in anticipation of this crime several hours before it actually occurring. Angela is told she would be sentenced to life in prison after being found guilty of first-degree murder, and prosecutors say that they have Angela herself to thank for the conviction, telling us that she would have likely gotten away with the murder had it not been for her increasing paranoia, that she was going to be caught, and that the crisis of conscience ultimately led her to confess. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. See you in the next one!